Mr. Lanny Grant, and the pledge.
Please stand. Father, we come to you this evening as we go about doing the business of Camden County for the people of Camden County. Father, we know that you're the one that gives us the wisdom and the guidance needed to do this business. Father, just continue to lead, guide, and direct us as we go through this. Father, we thank you for the beautiful weather you're giving us, including the hot weather. Father, just be with us again as we do this business. For this we pray in your most glorious name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Katie.
All commissioners are present.
I see we got an addition to the agenda. Is there any other additions? Seeing none, can we have a motion to accept the agenda as adopted?
So moved.
As amended, rather?
Second.
Got a first and second? All those in favor? Motion carries. This brings us to the public comment section. We'll limit it at 3 minutes each. Is anybody registered, Katie?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ricky Manning.
Rick Manning, Bullhead. Once again, I see the proposed budget is on the agenda with no oversight from the board or consideration from the citizens' input. I would like to point out that over $588,000 is allocated to the gun range in this budget, when there should not be a single tax dollar spent on running a commercial business just because someone desired to create a state-of-the-art range with others' money, yet neglected to provide the citizens, pets, and wildlife from the effects of the noise pollution. Also, no information is given to the patrons of this range on the serious health effects associated with gun ranges. One sits and wonders why there's an extravagant release of liability form one must sign to use the tax-funded gun range, yet it is not explained what the Georgia Department of Health, NIOSH, CDC, and others will recommend to protect the patrons of this gun range. This board is set to approve $200,000 for acoustical tiles that will do nothing more than insulate the roof of the pistol range and nothing to reduce the noise emitted from the range. This board also is set to approve expanding the range before it corrects the mistakes made in the original project. This board continues to allow tax funds to be spent on billboards, radio, and TV ads to promote noise pollution and health hazards associated with the range before correcting the project mistakes. This range was and continues to be a misuse of tax funds. Only here in our county is this allowed, compared to how all other public ranges are operated in our states. Changes need to be made so that our law enforcement still has a place for required training, yet it is not costing the citizens over $500,000 a year, and the county can meet its obligations with the DNR that should have never been entered into to begin with. Again, the people's money should not be wasted or used for commercial business, period. So once again, I ask that you table any funds for expansion or improvements to Two Rivers Gun Range until the original mistakes are corrected. Any funds moving forward should solely be used to address the current problems and should be completely vetted to make sure they are used wisely. And as I still have time, this liability form y'all signing, I don't think it's really going to protect you when it comes down to it. This county, the range is not explaining anything. Why are you signing a liability form at that range? The health hazards of this range with the lead and other toxins spewed out there, and you're steady promoting it. You're spending thousands and thousands of dollars promoting a range for women and children and not explaining to them the health effects. You're not going by recommended standards from the Georgia Department of Health of what they should be doing to protect themselves from the range. The range can be safely operated, but you got to do it the correct way. So quit spending money on the range until you correct your mistakes. Thank you.
Anybody else registered, Katie? Anybody else from the public wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. All right, this time we need to adjourn the special call meeting and convene the Solid Waste Authority meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the regular meeting and convene a solid waste authority meeting.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor? Are there any amendments to the Solid Waste Authority agenda? Seeing none, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Brings us to public comment section for Solid Waste Authority. Anybody raise your
No,
hand?
sir.
Anybody from the public wish to speak on a Solid Waste Authority agenda? All right. Seeing none, we'll move right on. And Nancy?
Yes, Nancy Gonzalez, Chief Financial Officer. This first agenda item for Solid Waste Authority is for your consideration to adopt the annual budgets for solid waste and curbside as required by state law. The annual budgets as presented have been advertised properly, and there was a public hearing held on June 13th. I just have a small presentation of just the highlights of curbside and solid waste. The curbside collections, the rate would increase to $300 annually, which is billed at $75 per quarter. And that would provide an additional $504,000 in additional revenue. There would be no use of the insurance premium tax this year. We've used it for the past several years, and we would be using no fund balance. And on solid waste, the commission and fees, the budget as presented is an increase of 7.3%. And that is from an increase in tonnage as well as a 5% increase in out-of-county fees for customers. And in-county customers would have an increase of 2.5%. And there would be almost a $1.3 million budgeted use of fund balance. And this is just a summary of the two items that are capitalized items on the Solid Waste Authority. It would be permitting the new MSW landfill for $114,800, and then also the final payment on the two D6 dozers. And so we're requesting approval, combined budget of $6,368,155 for curbside and solid waste combined.
Can we get a motion on this item before we have any discussion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a second?
Second.
First and second, any discussion on solid waste? Curbside. If nobody's got anything, can we get a first and a second? All in favor? Motion carries. And this brings us to the last public comment section for the Solid Waste Authority. Anybody from the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. At this time, we need a motion to adjourn the Solid Waste Authority meeting and reconvene the special called meeting.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Motion carries. All right, Nancy?
Yes, so this agenda item is for your consideration of the annual budget for all of the funds for fiscal year 2024, and that's the period of July 1, 23 through June 30th, 2024. And the total of all 18 funds is $90,612,983. And the annual budgets as presented have been advertised properly. Again, there was a public hearing on June 13th. And the budget was balanced using an estimated digest and the current millage rate of 14 mills. And we're requesting approval. And I do have some highlights to present to you. So this is on the government funds. And it's a 14% increase of ad valorem tax, and that's based on the tax assessor's digest estimates at this point. And that would produce 3.2 million in additional revenue. And again, that's using the current millage rate. We won't know until we actually have a final digest and calculate rollback fees, et cetera. Will we have a final number? Also based on local option sales tax increase of 4.5%, which was about 238,000. Intergovernmental revenues, we're estimating originally $100,000 for the special project with Kings Bay, but we've got more definitive cost on that right now. So I think that that will generate an additional $71,000. So we could, when you adopt the budget, we could adopt it as amended and include that additional 71,000. It also includes a transfer in from ARPA. I'm just going to be transferring in the interest. It's all unrestricted funds, but it'll come to the general fund. Also, there is excess on hotel motel since we've increased the tax, and that's also unrestricted, and that'll be transferred to the general fund of about 27,000. And the general fund is balanced using 1,648,319 of fund balance. And after I increase that one by the 71,000, that would reduce that by that amount as well. Two Rivers Gun Range, this is a transfer in from the general fund of 310,000, and that's to fund capital projects of 200,000 and also a balance of 110,000 to balance their budget. And most of that is made up of depreciation. They haven't quite made it to making enough revenue to balance with the expenses, but they've made a lot of improvements over the last year. The unincorporated tax district, an assumption of 12% growth over the current budget and no millage rate increase. And also the insurance premium tax is 35% increase. And that's so big because it's only a 3% growth, but we're moving all of the money back to the unincorporated tax district. That's why it's showing such an increase. Another item is personnel, and we're budgeting for a 2.5% pay increase, which is in accordance with the new salary schedule. Night shift pay differential for the sheriff's office of 35 cents per hour, and also that same amount for field training officer pay differential in the sheriff's office. Coroner on-call pay, $250 for the coroner and $125 per month for the deputy coroners, and they do receive a per death, they do receive a fee for that. And also the new positions, and I have other information on that, so I'll just leave it at new positions right now. And this is the list of the new positions, and you have that in your packet. It's 3 positions for general government, 2 positions for judiciary, the courts, public safety, 1 position, the public library in Kingsland, 1 additional part-time position, and planning and development, 2 GIS positions. Also consolidating the radio administrator position with the EMA deputy director position. And the current EMA deputy director position will become the EMA coordinator for a reduction in costs there. Also, we're budgeting for a reduction in the jailers, a sergeant and corporal, all in the jail. And that's just due to the large amount of vacancies. And the sheriff has requested, and I believe it's been discussed, that if he's able to fill the vacancies he has and he's moving on to these additional ones, he could come back and we could do a budget amendment for it. And again, the salaries and benefits are based on the 2.5% increase, but the sheriff did submit a salary schedule, which is separate from the Condrey schedule. And if the commissioners were to approve that, it would just be an additional almost $613,000 in payroll costs. And of course, we would have to use additional fund balance. Other highlights are the insurance. We've discussed this at several other meetings. 25% increase on property and equipment, and the vehicle and liability, we really don't know at this point what that will be. And I think we have further discussions on that as well. The grant matching fund, we've had that for the past several years of $100,000. That's going to continue. And transfers out, and this is moving money from the general fund to fund these other areas. The capital improvement fund, we would be moving 2.7 million. Emergency 911 to supplement or subsidize the 911 operations, 236,000. And also, as I stated earlier, Two Rivers Gun Range, it would be a total of 310,000. And this is just a highlight of the capital expenditures, although they are detailed in the packet that you have there, and I also have it in the PowerPoint. The capital expenditures is for the sheriff's office, 18 replacement vehicles for 1.5 million. And also out of capital expenditure fund, the resiliency center of 750,000. And the next item is ARPA, and it's out of the fiscal year 23 budget, but they have not been delivered yet. And I just thought it would be important as we're considering the 18 replacement vehicles. There's 31 vehicles that have been ordered for the sheriff's office, and they're in the process of being fit up or fit out. And they will be delivered, but they have not been delivered yet. And we have not paid anything yet. And out of the SPLOST fund, the roof replacement for this building and the historic courthouse, public works and fleet facility of 2.1 million. The third year of the leased vehicles, the sheriff's office and enterprise, and that's 192,000. And also the K-9 building completion of about 113,000. And this is just a summary of the detail that you have there. And it would be funding sources, capital improvement fund, the 2.7 million, ARPA, 3 million, SPLOST, 458,000, and that does exclude the road projects. That's important. Jail and staffing fund, 80,000, impact fees, 125,000, and unincorporated service district, 231,000. So the total capital expenditures are 6.6 million. And this is just a list which you have in front of you of it's by department and the items requested in capital improvements. And you can see on the far right, it has the funding source. The SPLOST fund, those projects really are set already. They're part of the referendum. And also ARPA has already been committed as well in prior fiscal years. So it's maybe just the capital improvement fund that you may want to look at and discuss further. And that was the capital expenditures for all the government funds, and then also for the gun range, which is an enterprise fund. The two items are the acoustic sounds for 200,000 and also the 5-stand shotgun. There is a grant available, and the match would be 27,500 to the county. And these are just revisions that I've made since the proposed budget. There was a correction on the public defender of $15,000 reduction. And on SPLOST, after we had the bid award for Horse Stamp Church Road and also the LMIG projects, I adjusted those to align with the approved projects. This is a summary of all the funds. We've discussed some of them. Many of these are smaller funds, but it's special revenue funds and very restricted spending. But you do have the detail in the proposed budget that was provided to you earlier. And this is just getting back to the general fund. The increase from the current year is 4,785,273, which is almost a 12% increase. And what that's made up of, it's for salaries, Social Security tax, the employer match, the retirement, employee health, safety equipment, and uniforms. That's an increase of 3.75% over the current budget. Contract increases, inflation, cost of goods and services, supplies, that's a 2.9% increase over the current budget. And the majority of the increase is in the capital expenditures, funding that capital expenditure fund of 2.7 million. But we do already fund it, and this year we're funding it about 600,000. So when you're comparing the two and you're looking at the increase is 2.1 million, although we're funding 2.7 million. And then the last item, which is not included in any of the cost, is the insurance, and that's the liability insurance and also the vehicle insurance. And I believe we do have the insurance broker on WebEx or on the line, that if you have any questions for him.
Give us an update on our insurance situation.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Just whenever the board's ready to hear any update from him, I believe he's on the line. Daniel, I don't know if you're able to unmute in the event.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you hear me all right, John?
Yes, sir. We can hear you great.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll start with, I just actually got a quote, from Safety National. I know I chatted with you and Lance briefly about that this afternoon for the, coverages that travelers previously had written for Camden County for the past 20 years, which is the auto, the general liability, the law enforcement liability, the employment practices and the management liability, as well as $1 million umbrella policy. And as I think everyone here is aware, travelers did non-renew the coverage earlier this year. And we went out to the marketplace and we have several replacement options. And the one that just came in from Safety National will provide coverage for those lines that I just referenced that were previously written by travelers. And for those coverages last year with travelers, the premium was $784,000 and 784,150. The coverage with Safety National is going to be significantly less than that. It's going to come in under about 650. However, that is just the premium. So the dollars spent initially will be less with Safety if that's the option that's selected, but the retentions will be significantly greater. So if we go the next 12 months starting July 1st and don't have any claims, Camden County will save money over the previous fiscal year. However, if we have claims, there obviously that number at this point, there's no way to determine what it would be, but it obviously could be extremely significant based on the number of claims and the severity of claims. And we're definitely in a very difficult litigation environment currently, which is one of the things that's driving insurance company rates significantly higher. Travelers, Kyle Strozier, who runs the public entity unit out of Alpharetta for Travelers, has been involved with Camden County for many, many years and was, it was a very difficult decision for him to have to cancel the coverage. But, he did share with me that this is not the only municipality that's being canceled. It's a very difficult environment for municipalities, as we all know. And unfortunately, there's a really, really disturbing trend going on. And, we may see this in the future, and everyone needs to be aware of it, where individuals driving vehicles are being individually named and their personal assets may come into play in terms of litigation. That's where we are. I think the majority of folks understand that, anyone can be sued, and the environment in Georgia, the Judicial Hellhole Report, which was released in December of last year, ranked Georgia as the #1 state in the country. And that is not a distinction that we should be proud of. So there's obviously a lot of unknowns when you go on a program like Safety National. I will tell you, Sean asked me what my experience with Safety National is. I've handled the city of Savannah and Chatham County's excess work comp with Safety National for the last 13 years. So I'm very familiar with them. They do specialize in municipalities, and they do specialize in making sure the municipality has a lot of skin in the game. So what, essentially what that means is when the claim occurs, there is going to be expense, and it could be very significant.
Got any idea of what that number would be?
It's going to depend on the number of claims. We could put together some historical information. I think we got a couple more lawsuits in today. So, as those claims come in, it's difficult to understand exactly what the ultimate payout would be. One advantage of this type of program is there is a cash flow advantage because it's not necessarily something that you pay for. Your premiums are discounted essentially up front because you have significantly higher retentions. But then as claims come in and as awards are rendered against counties, individual businesses, then that's when the dollars start to flow out.
Anybody got any more questions, Mr. Sim?
Not questions, concerns.
Want to share them?
Yeah, the fact I'd like to know what that, when he's talking about it, he's talking about deductibles, where our policy now was $25,000. These could be $250,000 easily. That's just
Actually,
yes.
yeah. I can certainly address that. So on the quote from Safety National, and we do have another quote for the law enforcement. And I have not had a chance to review this. I've had it for 25 minutes. But 250, I mean, I'll just go through it with you. The deductibles on this quote, the general liability is 250, the auto liability is 350, the law enforcement liability is 750, and the public officials is 250. So yes, I mean, they're very significant in terms of the self-insured retained limit.
I think everybody knows why it's like this. That we have numerous lawsuits against us, all contingent upon the sheriff's department, all of them.
So I guess my question is, say a road grader guy that falls off his road grader, he's 250. Is that basically what he's saying?
No, so essentially what you're describing there is, and so I'm assuming that's an employee of Camden County. That would be a workers' compensation claim. So that has a different deductible, and the county has had a $500,000 deductible for workers' compensation for many, many years. And historically, being self-insured has saved Camden County a lot of money because the workers' compensation claims experience has been very, very good. Mike and Lance and his team, we meet with them quarterly in the safety meetings quarterly. Holly Kubicek, who handles the claims and coordinates with the employees, does an outstanding job. As I mentioned, I work with other counties as well, and the workers' compensation is performing very, very well and is definitely saving the county money.
Well, look, our issue is, the liability from the sheriff's office. I think we're up to what, 17 cases now? But that's,
And each one of those cases cost us $750,000, right? Is that what you're saying?
No,
proposed.
no, not under the current structure with travelers. So under the current structure with travelers, the
Right.
deductible for the law enforcement is 15,000 per claim. But if we were to have those 17 in the next policy year, starting July 1st of 23, the max out of pocket, if every one of them went north of 750, is 17 multiplied by 750.
Wow. Which is a huge amount.
Yeah.
So,
And that amount's due at the time when the claim is made.
No. So, and these claims do take time, and that's kind of what I was alluding to when I referenced the cash flow issue. You may have a claim that's made today that doesn't actually go to court, until 2 years from now, and the judgment may be, quite some time after that. So you may be paying a claim that happened in 24 or 23. That claim, you may not have to fund that claim until 26, 27, 28. And that's true of workers' compensation as well. Again, there's some cash flow advantages to where we pay those claims as the bills come in and as the indemnity benefits are paid to the employee if they're a lost time claim.
And Daniel, I think it's also, good to note too, so like with travelers right now, just so the commissioners understand, I mean, in Georgia, you have up to a year to send us a notice of an annual item. So travelers is still on the hook until June 30th and even a year from now.
So those 17 belong to travelers.
Yes, sir.
yes.
And even if there's any more that's going to come within the next year, those would still be, for travelers.
Well, yeah, and
Go
just
ahead.
to clarify that a little bit, Sean said the policy is an occurrence form, and what that means is that anything that occurs during the policy year, because a lot of times, and this is in the state of Georgia, it's 2-year statute, so a lot of times we'll have, especially like a slip, trip, and fall or some type of claim, and it won't be filed. Let's say it happened today on June 27th, it won't be filed until June of 2025, but this policy year would respond. So, what's going to dictate the coverage and the terms and the deductibles is what was the date the claim occurred, not necessarily when it was reported, because to your point, the industry term is IBNR, so that's incurred but not reported. So we may have some claims that are sitting out there that we're not aware of because no litigation has been filed at this point in time.
And that's a big unknown.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Mr. Sims, is there a need for reinsurance beyond this, or is it even possible to get it?
Well, a lot of people would refer somewhat to what we're doing with the self-insurance of the workers' compensation as reinsurance. And really, I mean, what you're getting into now is with these significant retentions, and I should have prefaced it by Safety National, that the numbers that I'm giving you where I said it's going to be, significantly less, or it's going to be, $135,000 less than last year. That's at a 2 million limit. They also have offered an option, and I haven't vetted that and looked at it yet, but they did tell me, and they sent it, that it would be an option for a 5 million limit for all of those lines I mentioned. So again, the general liability, the auto liability, the public entity, the management liability, the employment practices liability. The exception would be they're only willing to provide a $2 million limit on the law enforcement under either scenario. So a law enforcement claim is going to be capped at 2 million, no matter which of those two policies you would select.
Thank you.
And you mentioned that, the lawyers are now going after, say, the driver of the car that caused the wreck, be it a deputy
Yes.
or a county employee.
Yeah, and that's a very negative trend we've seen, and it seems to be popping up in every claim. And the reality of it is, as long as you're acting in your capacity as an employee of Camden County, the policy is going to defend you. But then you get into, okay, $5 million sounds like a lot of money until we have a really bad auto accident, and if we get a $10 million judgment against us, then we get into those type of situations. The thing that's really disturbing, that's really changing the landscape for municipalities as well, the state offers a statutory cap of $750,000 for municipalities. However, if the claim is moved to what is often referred to as a 1983 event and it becomes a federal lawsuit, then the caps come off, and essentially at that point the sky's the limit. And of course, that's what the attorneys are trying to get with regularity now, is they obviously don't want the 750 cap, and they're starting to have some success in different venues. And I could share some examples with you. I mean, I don't have them right now, but I mean, I've heard stories, and I could get backup for this, where there's more and more cases that are going the 1983 route. We had the event in Savannah, and Savannah doesn't buy any liability coverage. They invoke sovereign immunity, and it's worked very well through the years. However, and some of y'all may be aware, we had about a $9.5 million lawsuit that we had to fund several years ago, where unfortunately a tree fell on a woman and it caused very severe injuries to her. And we were on notice that the tree needed to have been removed, which is why the claim was paid. But obviously that was far in excess of a $750,000 cap.
Well, there's a lot of unknowns with our insurance, so I know we're gonna have to do a budget amendment going forward whenever we figure this out.
I got one more question. It may be a dumb question, but I usually ask them anyway. What if we decide that we're not just going to pay everybody that sues us when they scratch their finger walking through a door, and you go and you fight it and you win? Do you still have to pay this 250,000, 350,000, 750,000? I mean, if you started,
I don't think so.
Huh?
If there's no judgment, I don't think so.
so there has to be a judgment, just not a lawsuit, right? But
Right, correct. As long as you prevail, if you prevail in litigation, then we're out of it at that point. Now you may have some defense costs that you'll have to fund up to that point, but I mean, obviously, if there's no judgment rendered against the county, then you're correct. There would, you would have no expense in that event.
That's if we have to go self-insured, we'd probably go that route. Then we'd have to hire several attorneys just to handle.
well, somebody's going to win, but you just choose the lesser.
Anybody else got anything on the insurance? All right, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah,
Just,
and I've shared with
quick-
Sean that, if anyone wants to contact me directly, they're certainly welcome to do that.
Real quick, one more question. How many companies did we reach out for or reach out to, and then how many responded?
Well, so we have another quote from Kinsale on the law enforcement. We went to, there's not a tremendous number of folks that do public entities in the state of Georgia. I don't have it in front of me. I can send you, and it will be part of the final proposal, the marketing summary, which will detail everybody we went to. But I can tell you, the majority of the responses, other than the Kinsale and Safety National, were declinations. And also ACCG, which is the county fund that writes a tremendous number of counties throughout the state of Georgia. We approached them, and in conjunction with Sean and Mike and Lance, and they don't work through brokers like me, but we certainly shared all the information we had with them and told them if there was any way we could help them. We were hoping that they were going to come through with a very competitive proposal. And obviously we would at that point be replaced on some of the lines of coverages, but that's fine. I shared with Lance today that, that is a relationship that I would recommend you continue to try and nurture, because it may be a solution in the future if the claims experience were to improve.
But they turned us down too.
That's my understanding. They don't work through us.
If we went a year with no lawsuit, we'd be fine, right?
Would be better. I don't know about fine, but
I know that sounds funny,
My,
but it's
my
possible.
experience with that, it's gonna take years to live down where we currently are.
Yeah.
It's gonna take years of positive experiences. Now, what are the possibilities of that happening? I think we kind of know what that is.
I'm not as pessimistic. I actually think we might be able to do this. Maybe not in a year, but eventually.
It could very easily bankrupt us trying to pay the deductibles if it continues on the path it's on today.
Absolutely.
It absolutely can bankrupt this county. Think about that, folks. Think about it.
all right, there's not a whole lot we can do about the insurance right now.
No.
No, we're gonna have to come back on this item. So let's get on with the budget. Anybody got any places they want to cut?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Could we start with the 200,000 from the gun range? I look at that as, I know it's in two separate segments, partial into the rifle range and partial into the pistol range. And, I do think the pistol additions for the acoustical tiles will be a nice addition, but I feel like it's something we don't have to have. We really have to have, liability insurance. And so thinking about that, I think we should go through this thing pretty good. And that's one thing that we don't have to have.
okay.
And there was a talk of a potential grant that we could get some funds, so we could always, if it comes back that we get that grant, we can always come back and do a budget amendment and talk about how much it's gonna cost the county at that time.
So you're saying take away the whole $310, $310,000,
200,000.
200,000?
Yep. What's the other 110 for? Is that just operating?
110 is really to balance the Two Rivers Gun Range budget. I believe about 78,000 of that is depreciation and the rest
Okay.
is operating costs.
So the 110,000 is needed, the 200,000 we can get rid of.
Yep.
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. 200,000 gone. All right, anything else?
Put this in consideration on reduction on the amount of cars for the sheriff's office also.
I think,
Nine work with you, Kevin?
yep.
Lower that to 9.
What page is that on?
That's on your page
12.
10.
10, 12?
That's on 12 as well.
Oh.
And then we can, the side by side.
So how much did that, if we go 9 instead of 18, that'd be 750?
Mhm.
All right.
And the 15 on the side by side.
Everybody agree with those two cuts?
Yep.
So that's 765, right?
Altogether, that is 965,000.
That's everything, but I'm talking
Yep.
about.
Yeah.
Those two,
I can't find it right now, but I'd like to see us cease all lawsuit activities, legal activities related to the failed cause and any failed hope of getting any money back from the spaceport. And just go with business as usual for our legal expenses.
That's one item I don't think we ever budgeted for, did we?
There's not a budget specifically in the spaceport for legal fees, but the thought was that any additional legal fees would be charged to the county attorney legal fee. But there's a contracted service line on that department. And it would come out of that.
Okay. And what's that line item currently?
I believe it's 150,000.
The only issue with that is that, you know, you have to go back and recall that $150,000, what that is set aside for, going back to the insurance for a little bit. That was to set aside some money per claim. So right now with travelers, we're expected, you know, our deductible is $25,000 per claim. So that's basically, you know, 6 claims there.
So,
Yep.
so where in any of this is any spaceport money? Is there any spaceport money?
I think we would have to do a budget amendment if there's any coming up that we would have to account for. Because I think with the claims, I mean, we're still gonna see these claims
So,
coming
so
in.
there's no reduction, no possibility of reduction in the budget? You're talking about if.
I'm talking about just the 150,000. We've had that set aside in the county attorney's budget just to defend ourselves on claims. Now, if we end up signing with this new insurance company, you might as well kick that figure up over $1 million, $2 million. Because we're having to pay
Yep.
per deductible or per claim, basically.
But to Commissioner Goodman's point, there's nothing in our budget
No, sir.
that's spaceport related at all.
No, sir.
So,
No.
you know, speaking of the insurance and talking about, you know, I think, it was mentioned about, it was a city of Savannah, I can't remember, about invoking sovereign immunity and fighting out some of those claims. We are budgeting for a full-time county attorney in this next fiscal year. Is that something, I mean,
Just
You know.
it's partially funded, but that would be a succession plan.
right?
So I think you would still, you know, you're still gonna look at having to hire outside counsel in the event that we get hit with more claims. I mean, you're gonna have to do that per claim.
Mhm.
So depending upon what claims we get hit with, whether it's employment practices, whether it's law enforcement liability, whether it's auto, the county attorney is not gonna be able to take on defending the county against every single one of those claims. So you're gonna have outside attorney and legal fees just for that.
That's if we become self-insured.
Correct. Or even with the new insurance company. I mean, just based off of that level of deductible, I mean, you're talking a minimum $250,000 deductible per claim. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
You have the issue with the insurance companies, a lot of times they want to settle instead of going to court.
Sure.
Due to the fact that if they can settle, usually it turns out in their favor.
Sure.
So you got to look at that. But if it has a court case, then we've got to have the attorneys representing us too. So.
Mhm.
All right, any other cuts y'all want to make?
I think we got a long ways to go. Personally, I just don't know where to start.
I think, just considering the cuts that you've done now, Nancy can fact check my figures here, but I'm just subtracting from our current use of fund balance or expected use of fund balance from where we initially started before you all started to make cuts, but based off of what you all have recommended, I think we're down to $627,319 in use of fund balance.
I
Is
was
that-
going the other way. I was adding up what we're going to reduce it by. So
I'm
the
just
1.6
subtracting, yeah.
million will be reduced by 1,036,000, which would be the reductions in expenditures and the increase of 71,000 in revenue.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
So 136, yeah, 1,136, yeah, okay.
But I mean, you know, and not to keep harping on this insurance thing, but we're almost 3 days away from potentially having these deductibles that are going to be $250,000 up to $750,000. So, I mean, you know, trying to look at this from a fiduciary standpoint, I think we need to prepare for that and not just wait until it happens and be reactive. Because, you know, this time it sounds like that's, you know, maybe one of the only companies who have responded back. I don't know if we're expecting one or two more options in the next day or two, but we don't have much time to figure that out.
No,
Well, we gotta set a budget now, but,
Yeah.
you know, going forward, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, we could institute a hiring freeze for the county.
yeah.
There's,
Well, and you know, that's something, you know, fair to discuss. You know, looking at the different categories of expenses, you know, I believe in taking care of the people we've got as opposed if we had to choose versus hiring new positions. And so, you know, if that were the case, then maybe that's something to consider. You know, I know there's some capital expenditures that we could probably go through and look at those and look at the new positions.
Commissioner Reddick, I agree with you. There's a lot of fat and a lot of budgets. And, we've seen that recently.
Yep.
You know, up to over $1 million in a couple of years there. So, you know, it has to be, the time's come to, the budgets need to be realistic.
Yep. And I don't know about y'all, but I mean, I got my property assessment a few days ago and it felt like a rent notice. I mean, you know, it was expensive.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think sometimes getting back to the basics of providing services to the citizens at the most cost-effective delivery method we can do, you know, is really kind of why we're here.
I'd like to see us go back and reconsider any potential purchase of furnishings. It seems to me that we are kind of heavy in that department. I agree that we don't need to penalize the employees, and we should look at new hires on an absolute demonstrated necessity basis. But there's some capital expenditures that I question. For instance, if, you know, air conditioning systems for this building are on the schedule to be replaced, there's nothing wrong with this one. It's working.
because this one was recently replaced.
Okay?
They can actually have this one, right? They can take it.
They got this one right.
A lot of the air conditioners were replaced through ARPA.
Yeah.
What about the Resiliency Center, 750,000? What exactly is that money for?
That's, that's to help finish, phase 2 for the project. Also, you know, we have been working with Congressman Carter's office on receiving federal appropriations for that. So we will not know, whether or not we will be approved for that funding until probably September of this year. So this is just a safety net. In the event that we are approved, that money will, go away.
One of the reasons why we're doing that is to move the elections and the registrar out of the old courthouse building and put them in where the planning and zoning is now, and moving planning and zoning and those folks over to the Resiliency Center.
If you're looking at the capital items, if you're looking through that spreadsheet, you'll see it, on the far right-hand side of those columns, it'll say either ARPA, SPOS, capital improvement. If you're trying to reduce the amount of money that the county is using in fund balance, you would need to look at those items that says capital improvement. Everything else is being funded by other funds. One of the main reasons why the county is having such a heavy side on capital this year is because our category for equipment, IT, heavy equipment, anything related to that sort, out of SPOS 8, that category is depleted fully. So therefore, the general fund is having to now pick that cost up for the next year and a half.
So on this breakdown, you're saying specifically, the capital improvement fund would be that?
Yes, the capital improvement fund is funded from the general fund. There's a transfer out, which in essence is an expenditure.
So based on where we are right now, what will our use of your fund balance be?
About $600,000 as opposed to 1.6 million.
I have it as 627, 319.
The 2023 F-250 with service body, from my understanding, we have one currently. Are we adding a second one? Or are we replacing it?
I'll let Shalana. Shalana, are you on the call? She had to join via WebEx. She's probably trying to unmute. So there she is.
She's there.
And that's for fleet, correct? Fleet?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Shalana,
asking about capital expense for the truck?
correct.
Yes, ma'am.
The Chevy Trailblazer that has been in use by the fleet manager at this point has been taken out of commission. Just for safety purposes, it can no longer be operated. So right now we do have the other two vehicles that are used predominantly for mobile repairs and on-call repairs. So the idea behind it was to try to move things around. We would purchase a vehicle out of that $65,000 that could be outfitted for mobile operations, and then we would take one of the pickup trucks that we have now that we use for mobile and transfer that to the fleet manager. The fleet manager does respond to emergencies and calls after hours, as well as, obviously parts and things of that nature. That's what it would be used for.
On the tax commissioner vehicle, $45,000, is there not some vehicle that's available in the inventory of vehicles that could be used until we can afford to purchase a new $45,000 vehicle? I don't think we're looking very closely at getting the most we can out of non-emergency response type vehicles. I have never seen the tax commissioner where he couldn't delay his visit if his car wouldn't crank one morning until he could get a ride some other way. I just think we have to watch every one of these singular vehicle replacements or purchases.
I believe they also have a Trailblazer that they use. I think it's a 2007 model, but I'm not exactly 100% sure on that. It's somewhere in the 7 to 8 year range. I don't exactly know how many miles are on it, but I do know that it's almost, if not past its end of life cycle. So, I mean, that's just.
It's a
something-
tired vehicle. I don't question that.
Yes, sir.
But I drive, of the 3 cars that I have, 2 of them are very tired. I do have one that absolutely will roll when it's time to roll, but
You know, there's nothing wrong with somebody who's in a non-emergency position driving a tired vehicle. And maybe we could refresh a few of those tired vehicles and just, you know, swap them out if one is not up to par for a particular trip. You know, when people go out of town, we rent cars. So it's not a matter of having to have something that'll take them to a meeting in somewhere upstate. So I just think we have to watch all this purchasing new vehicles for every single employee on the payroll.
What about the computers, $189,000 for computers? What does that cover?
That's our refresh. I'll let Lewis, if you want to come up and just come up to the mic if you can, Lewis.
So we've just got a hardware refresh cycle we do right now, and the desktops we refresh at every 5 years. And then the laptops we refresh at every 3 years. And coming up this time, it's going to be mostly laptops and Surfaces. And those we do every 3 years because they move around, they're mobile, and they're being plugged in and out of, adapters break, things get dropped, screens get cracked. So, and also the heat builds up and it kills the electronics a lot quicker.
Sure. So these are just for laptops to cycle?
I think there's some desktops in there too, but the majority of them are laptops.
You know, just curious, and I buy a fair amount of computers, but not, you know, not as much as the county does. And
Right.
I know, you know, computers for a good computer, I mean, you could spend $2,000, $5,000. Are all these desktops, are they workstations?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they are.
My experience has been, and I've bought some, you know, $2,000 to $3,000 HP workstations, and, you know, 3, 4, 5 years later, they start, you know, running real slow and crashing, and you take them to the computer shop, and for $200, they put a new hard drive in, and they reload Windows, and they do this, and, you know, $400 or $500, you're out the door with what would have been, you know, $3,000 if you were to replace with new. Is there some possibility, and I understand the laptops might be different, but with the desktops, is there any possibility we could tighten that up a little bit?
Yeah, we could do that with the desktops, absolutely.
You know, because I understand laptops have screens and, like I said, plugins and stuff,
Right.
but the ones that aren't moving around, I'm just wondering what, you know, how much we could save in there with that.
Right, I just don't think we've got a lot of desktops that we're getting ready to refresh. We just finished up with those, and the majority of them are laptops. And we have found some computers that are desktops in the county right now that aren't being used. We were actually having a conversation about that today, about relocating those to use those as opposed to buying new. But it just depends on what the computers are being used for.
Sure. I don't know, it's kind of hard to project, I guess, what that would be, but.
Any idea what that figure would be for just the desktops?
Not right off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at the build out.
They want to look at that while they're.
We might be here a while.
Yeah, I'd probably guess probably $20,000 to $30,000, somewhere around there. Like I say, the majority of them are laptops this year.
Yeah. Hey, every bit helps at this
Yep.
point, so,
Yep, I'll go take a look.
okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a,
Okay, good.
all right. If I were the singular president of this company, looking at this budget and looking at how these numbers appear, knowing that I had my personal fortune at stake or that of my stockholders if I were a public company, I would gather up all of the department directors and I would say, it's Tuesday. Come back in here Friday with a 5% across the board cut for your department without cutting staff, without cutting anybody's salary. Figure it out. Make it delaying purchasing some piece of furniture or some vehicle or some item that you can still get usage out of without it costing a fortune. But come back in here Friday with a 5% cut for your department and do that across the board for every department that we have any control of. And I know we don't have control of one of the biggest ones, but that's what I would do with this. And that's what I'm very burdened as a representative for the taxpayers to say tonight. Come back in here Friday with a 5% cut for each department. End of speech.
Yeah, I have thought about that, you know, thought process and not to disagree with it. Very good thought process, but also, you know, I keep going back to that, chart in our, strategic planning that has the foundation of what we do, basically county services, and then kind of the hierarchy, of prioritizing, the services we deliver to the citizens. So, public safety, we've got to have roads to access them. I mean, and there's certain basic functions that we have to have as a government, but it's pretty comprehensive, and I didn't think to bring it with me tonight, but looking at this with, one other thing that comes to mind, the juvenile court, I know we're talking about Commissioner Gooden brought up furnishings. It looks like we're talking about court benches at a cost of $3,500 to $4,500 for a total cost of $54,000. I know we did one budget amendment to add in, was it a full-time or part-time person, or take a part-time person to full-time?
Adding a full-time position for
Adding a
juvenile
full-time,
court.
yeah.
Okay.
The benches, just to kind of touch on those, so when we extended the juvenile courthouse about 5 years ago, obviously with that extension, we had to have more seating. So there's chairs over there rather than benches. The problem
Right.
with chairs is they become flying objects and potentially used as weapons. So
Yep.
Judge Green has been asking for these benches for basically ever since then, and
Yep.
that's why they're here
Well,
before.
here's the solution to that. Benches would not be easy to pick up, but if you bolted those chairs down, they couldn't be a flying object.
And that's what I was about to say, exactly the same thing. I mean, and I know he really, requested having this full-time person and really needed, and I think that's where we got to look at it and say, okay, what do you need more, your full-time person or your benches? And, just situations like that, because to Commissioner Goodman's point, I mean, these chairs, I'm sure they probably need replacing, but if we could bolt them down and get another.
You bolt them
Here,
together,
yeah.
same effect. If you bolt
Right.
to the line of chairs together, you can't pick them up and make a flying object out of them.
I don't think bolting chairs to the floors is the answer to the problem.
Well,
to be
not
honest.
bolt them to the floor, bolt them together so that they move as a bench. If that's the problem you're trying to solve, that's a cheaper way of doing it.
Sometimes you have to move them out of the building and make room for other things and all too, so.
And so you unbolt them and move them out of the room, same as you would a bench. I mean, we can think of all the reasons why, we can't do it. Let's just think of the one reason why we can do it that way.
All right, let's do this. Who's in favor of removing the benches from the budget?
Aye.
All right, that's 3 to remove the benches. I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either.
It's fine.
You got a situation over there that's been asked for and asked for and asked for, we turned him down, now you turn him down again. And he does a super job for this county, trust me. Ain't nobody sitting up here that want his job.
I think it's a mistake.
No, it is, it is.
You brought up the vehicles. Which ones you want to remove? Does anybody want to remove the vehicles?
What I'm talking about is the tax commissioner.
Anybody else want to remove that vehicle?
How many other vehicles do we have? We brought the sheriff's office down to 9. We've got the fleet, service body.
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
Who wants to remove the tax commissioner vehicle? Anybody?
Page is that on?
15.
Got one vote to remove it.
45,000.
Anybody else want to remove the tax commissioner's vehicle? Looks like that one stays.
Not to pick on the resiliency center again, but looking at, I'm just now seeing there's an IT build out of $500,000, furnishings of $200,000, and $50,000 for TVs. I do want to talk about the IT and the furniture, but could we talk about the TVs first? How many TVs is that for? And
What we're estimating is, potentially, we're still kind of looking at projector versus TVs, but if you were to go to TV route, I think in the two sections in the larger room, it'd be, I think 18 there, and then another 4, so 22 total. And if you did 80-inch screen TVs, I think right now you can probably get those for about $800 to $1,000 a piece. So what we're saying is that all the TVs, the software to manage that, all the hardware to mount all the TVs, it'd probably be closer to that $50,000 figure. If you go projectors, it's gonna be a lot more because the projectors, depending upon what make and model you go with, they
Sure.
get
sure.
pretty pricey.
I think that Buddy's, Congressman Carter, excuse me, he's 1.6 million, am I correct?
Yes, sir. Just over that.
So it more than covers the 750.
If we get it,
Yeah.
a big if.
That is there as a placeholder in the event that that does not happen. The one thing that I would ask is that if this board does anything, when we do get ready to issue phase 2 for bid and we do not get approved from Congressman Carter's office, that be reinstated. Very similar to what we're talking about doing for the sheriff's office.
That's not a bad idea.
I have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Taking the full 750.
I mean, if that's what we're talking about doing for the sheriff's office, I just think that we need the understanding and the commitment from the board to know that in the event that if that whole process doesn't come through, I mean, we need to complete this facility, so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
It'd have to come out of the fund balance.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take that out, then we're no more use of fund balance whatsoever. Now you're actually, cutting down on expenses.
And we're supposed to know
But this is still a big if.
September? Is that,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
are you
That's-
gonna need this before September?
Probably not all of that, but probably by the end of this year or calendar year, probably around October, December timeframe, we will need to start having that, because once we come back before you all, I think we had talked about doing a work session on the phase 2 side of things for the resiliency center, kind of scaling back, just looking at what we actually need to do for that other side of that facility. And then from there, we would put that bid out. So if we were to even get the bids back by, say, late August or early September, construction wouldn't actually start until right there after that. So just depending upon what bills they're going to incur in that first 3 to 6 months, we would probably start to need to, at least to have that money budgeted in the event Congressman Carter's office is not able to come through.
So what you're proposing is remove it now, then if we need to do a budget amendment later on.
If that's what the board would like to do. It's just an option.
I think that's what we all agreed.
Well, if you did that, then it would go, as far as what you're pulling out, would go to zero,
It'd be more than zero. Yeah, you'd be,
put money back,
It's almost 200,000
back.
back.
it'd
But we
be,
need a commitment from the board that we'll add it back if needed.
it'd be,
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
it'd be 223, 319 now,
Okay.
All right.
actually out of expenses. So we would have to offset that in revenues. And just cut down on the property tax, probably the best area.
Oh, anything else?
Yes. Where'd it go? Well, I know before we get off capital expenditures, Lewis was gonna look up his numbers. Question on the computer and laptop for the GIS administrator. Is that a computer and laptop for both positions or one for one and one for the other?
It'd be one for, I believe it's one for each. I'll get clarification from Lewis when he comes back, but those are typically computers that have a little bit more processing capability.
Sure.
Just because of, the.
GIS and
Right.
CAD and yeah.
Yes, sir. And I was actually wrong on my figure there. It's actually 176,681. So I apologize for that.
What's that number? 176?
176,681 to the
Okay.
positive now, actually,
Okay.
cutting back on revenues.
But
Yeah.
again, bracing for impact, I don't think we should stop there with, in 3 days from now, the potential deductibles we're going to be facing for liability.
Yeah, depending upon what those deductibles are, we would absolutely have to increase the legal fee line item in the county attorney's budget by Lord knows how much. I don't know if it need to be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. If you're talking about a potential $750,000 payout or deductible per claim.
Right, yeah.
And we already have 15 or 17 of those now. That can be pretty scary.
Yep. Looks like Lewis is back. You got some numbers for us?
So there's a total of 26 desktops, 13 of them are tier A, 13 of them are tier B. Comes out to about $52,000.
And that would be, now, does that count taking those and having them refurbished, or is that just the total purchase?
That's the total purchase to refresh those.
Okay.
That includes monitors, warranty, everything.
Okay. And how many of those machines you said?
There's a total of 26 desktops.
26, okay.
And I think we've got maybe 4 or 5 we can move around to cover those, to cover some of those.
Well, I wonder if we could refurbish the desktops for half of that number, or,
Yeah,
I
we
don't know
could.
how much is monitors and,
Yeah, we could do that. I mean,
just some of the monitors are, 7, 8, 10 years old. I could definitely see the benefit in
yes, sir.
replacing those, but,
I think all of the ones we got now, they've been refreshed pretty regular up till this point.
okay.
So I think we'd be good for, extending that out another year or so.
Okay.
If, that definitely helps.
So half of that would be what,
26.
26?
Yes, sir.
26.
We can lower that 189.
Yes, sir.
About 26.
Yes, sir.
And then the question, well, no, I think Sean answered it, on the number of computers, but it was for the GIS. I was trying to figure out if that was 2 computers or 4 computers. I didn't know if it was a laptop and desktop for both, or just one of each for.
I think it's 2 desktops. I'd have to go back and look at that too.
So it's new computer and laptop for GIS admin position and GIS
Okay.
tech.
I think we ought to stick with new computers on those 2 positions.
Yeah, yeah,
Agreed. Those are, pretty resource intensive.
right,
yeah.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Just for clarity, we're talking about just reducing that one line by 26,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring down to 163,400. Anything else on capital expenditure?
What was the True Vision LiDAR? I remember hearing about this. I just can't. Radar. Okay. And that's just for one, or is that like a set? Two. Okay.
I'm adding it up now.
We've got a reduction of 1,866,000.
Let's go back to the resiliency center. What did we do with that?
We took it all the way out, the 750,
The 750s all the way out?
Yeah.
with the,
agreement that if, the funding source we're looking at doesn't materialize, we'll add it back out of the general fund.
Well, that's the part of it I think that concerned me is how much of it will we add back? Every bit of it? Because I think that needs to be looked at very closely.
We can look at it, and when we find out we don't, get the funding source,
Yes.
we can definitely look at it then, when we go to do our, new budget amendment.
As opposed to saying that if it doesn't work, it gets every bit of it put back. I agree with that. Let's look at that when the time comes very closely.
Nancy, just to recap real quick, I want to make sure I've got all these items taken care of. So we're cutting the 200 for the gun range, the 750 for sheriff's office for the vehicles, the non-vehicles, the 750 for the resiliency center, the $15,000 for the side-by-side in the sheriff's office, $54,000 in the juvenile court judge benches, $26,000 on the IT hardware refresh. Is there anything else that I've missed?
And the additional revenue of 71,000.
Okay, right,
So we reduce use of fund balance. That would really be a reduction.
right, okay. And that's the 71,000, Nancy.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else on capital expenditures? Anybody got anything on any positions?
what are the total number of vacancies that we're proposing right now?
Vacancies for which area?
Just, I'm looking at, I think it's page 7. Does that cover?
Are you talking about new positions or are you talking about current vacancies?
Just current vacancies.
Current vacancies for which department though?
Just countywide. Is that summarized on? here?
I don't have that
Or
number.
no?
No, sir.
Okay.
Across the board, I would say it's minimal, where it's the largest is in public safety.
Yeah.
There may be a few in solid waste and public works, but it's nowhere near as much as what we experienced in public safety.
Do we know those numbers?
We could pull them.
Got the
Okay. Yeah.
jails,
Okay.
sheriff's office, it's not over.
All right. So it looks like, I think that's the one that's supposed to be patrol. So 10 vacancies in patrol, 1 in school resource officer, 20 in the jail, and 5 in E911. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that's the vacancies based on the latest payroll that was processed this week.
Okay. Doing some quick math here.
That's 12 for the sheriff's office.
12.
That would fall under patrol. Would they be patrol deputies, Kevin? Thank you.
Okay. All right, so add two more. All right, so that's a total of 38, looking at, and I'm trying to remember, it seems like the number of full-time employees is around 150. Does that sound about right? 41, 45, and then I can't remember the part-time, like 10-ish. Okay. So roughly that's a 25% growth rate. I guess you would call it a growth rate. I don't know what else to call it. Is that feasible, we think? I mean, because looking back at previous years, it seemed like, it gets pretty convoluted with all the different, you've got full-time and then like new positions funded and then, vacancies and all that stuff, but
Any of the vacancies the numbers I've given you is just full-time.
okay.
Kevin, how many, have y'all been able to hire historically every year?
And I'm curious, I'd ask the question, I don't know if we got the data together or not, because you're hiring people and then sometimes you're losing people. And so trying to measure that net, I'd like to know what the net has been, I guess, every year. And maybe it was on that chart you had put together a few months ago.
The net, I think the net's consistently stayed around like filled full-time positions around that 125 to somewhere around that 120 to 125 range
Right.
is where we've pretty much continuously seen that. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, if you feel like that number is high or low, but I think that's consistently where we've kind of seen it.
125 is high.
Well, it's probably high.
It may be around that 120 figure, but it's.
Yep.
Because I think with the hiring, there's always terms and sometimes the terms are not like actual terminations. I mean, it could be just people leaving because they found another job somewhere. I mean, we just classify them as terms in our system.
And so, thinking about that, if that number, say is 10, say, the sheriff's office gains 10 employees every year consistently, then, averaging 140, 150 full-time positions, that'd be like a 7% growth rate. And we're budgeting for a little over 3 times that. So that's, I guess, my point to that is, I want to make sure the budget we're passing is realistic because we can always come back and do budget amendments, kind of like we talked about. I mean, I think when we first started chipping away at and trying to get this back, there were 12 or 14 positions cut out. I mean, realistically, can we hire 38 positions in 1 year and onboard them and train them and, do all that? I don't know.
We would like to.
You got a proposal in there?
Proposal?
Yeah.
Did you lose one today? Like you talked about
On Friday.
on Friday?
Friday. What's our current vacancies with fire rescue? Just wondering, just because it's both public safety, just kind of curious where we sit with that.
So right now we actually have, we have 19 openings, but we're in the process of filling those openings as we speak. So in the end, at the end of this week, because I just got back my last background checks, those offers will be out. I will only have 6 openings, which are all paramedic openings.
And how many total employees with fire rescue?
We have 101.
101. Yep.
That does not include part-time. We have
Okay,
about 15 part-timers.
Okay. So roughly that's just shy of 6%, 6 vacancies over 101 positions.
It was a lot worse several years ago.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
I told Chief, this is the first time we've had more applicants than we had openings. It's just with the paramedic openings, we don't have the right applicants.
That's, you know, just with the paramedics, just in talking about that, that's something that, you know, we'll need to consider here pretty soon too. Just
Yep.
on how we're doing as far as our recruitment and retention on paramedics. It's a
Right.
national issue, but, you know, we're gonna have to look at it pretty closely here pretty soon.
You know, I guess getting back to the sheriff's office, looking at that, it looks like the most vacancies are in the jail, but it sounds like that's where y'all need the help the most. And so I don't know, you know, it may be counterintuitive to dial that back, but I mean, are y'all actively successful? And you know, I guess when people are coming in, are they coming in to the jail as well, or are they, you know, going to patrol or?
We get both. So you have some, most of them come in the jail because they're not certified. If they're certified, then we put them on patrol. But we pull from the jail too. We'll send them to the academy. We'll pull them from the jail, go to the academy, and they come to patrol.
In your policy, Kevin, is to, when you hire somebody, you make them work in the jail for a few months prior to going on the road.
We've been doing that. Yes, sir. We did actually just changed that up. So if you're certified from another HCRE coming in, because the patrol needs the help too. I think we have 2 shifts right now with 3 on it and 2 shifts with 4 on patrol. And with service calls going up and, you know, more population coming in, you see all the apartment buildings coming up. It's busy out there.
Mhm.
We just, so for this year, so far for the sheriff's office, just Commissioner Reddick, to your question earlier. I think this is as of, last month, but I'll modify the last one. So they've hired 22, and not necessarily specified in any division that they have, but, you know, lost 19. So it's, again, pretty flat.
It's a wash.
It's almost a wash, so.
83.
Anybody want to make a proposal on maybe cutting some positions, or think y'all can do with 5 less positions, Kevin?
Didn't we take ain't there 10 positions from, if we need them, we're not, that's not in the budget, correct? There's 10
Right, the
positions. from
10
jail.
jailers.
Yeah, I think right now there's 20 jailers. So patrol, this would be as the proposal sits now, there's 12 vacancies budgeted in patrol, 1 school resource, 20 jail, and 5 E911. So that'd make 38. And I think we started the original proposal at 52. Does that sound right? Yep.
Yes.
We could do like we mentioned with the jailers, you know, if you hire the people and you get where you need to hire more, we can always do a budget amendment. But I think what Trevor's getting at is it might be unrealistic that you would be hiring 36 people in a year. So
In the jail, yes. On patrol, I could, you know, with the 9 vacancies on patrol, that's actual patrol deputies that patrol the county. That's always hard to, you know, cut those out because we're actively pursuing those people. And we
Yep.
just recently losing those people that we lost, we hope we're going to replace them. There's a secretary position that is in there that could probably be removed. And a couple of if we have to come back, so I would say that one plus the 3 more positions. So a total of 4.
4?
In patrol?
3 on patrol and then 1 secretary.
Oh, okay.
It don't matter to me what position.
Right, sure, yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things I think I've, over the years conversations with y'all, I've heard the statistics of, well, there's only X amount of deputies on, like right now, how many deputies are on patrol in the whole county?
4.
Four. And that seems like such a low number. And I'm trying to think, I've looked at a lot of the data and the charts. And I know our population has grown, but I'm trying to think what has changed other than that. Because I mean, we've always kind of been around 50,000 or so. I think the last census we're at 58,000, give or take, and we're steady growing. But and then also looking at the number of full-time employees have kind of stayed somewhat flat. I mean, it's grown a little bit as well, but just trying to think about what's changed versus 10 years ago, or, maybe it's just the number of calls that y'all are going on. I don't.
Service calls have went up for both us and fire rescue. I'm sure, I know it has for us. I'm pretty sure for fire rescue too. And you take one accident on I-95 this afternoon or tonight or tomorrow and hope we don't have one. You can take all 4 deputies off calls because when you have traffic shut down on I-95, I'm coming out working, so is a lot of other people too. So, to answer calls, so it hurts.
Kevin, the receptionist is the one you were talking about?
Yes, sir.
Secretary? Yeah. Take that one out. That's
What?
36,400.
36,400. What page was that on?
It's on page 7, middle of the page.
Thank you.
Yeah, receptionist and then 3 patrol.
And what would that be for, I guess, the total for those 3 patrol? Do we have a number?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right.
About 138,000 for the 3 patrol. And the secretary, you mean the new position?
Yeah.
The new position, the salary and the FICA would be approximately 38,000.
Okay.
I think you've got built in right here, Nancy, 36.4 for that receptionist. So do we need to do the 36.4 or the 38?
The 36.4 is just the base salary.
Okay, so 38 then. Okay. What was the number one more time for the 3 patrol?
138,000.
All right, anything else?
Sean's totaling that, see where we're at.
Total net gain of 2,042,000.
2,040,000.
2,042,000.
Okay.
Do you think, is there any wiggle room in the jail? Just kind of like we were talking about earlier, if we, if we were to lower that down and then fill those positions and, look at doing a budget amendment. I'm not sure exactly what areas of the jail those are for.
We already cut them 10 position.
10.
Yeah.
What'd you say the net gain was?
2,042,000. The reduction in expenditures is 1,971,000 and the revenue increase is 71,000. So that's the net 2,042,000.
Really got anything else?
Well, at this point, we basically keep our 15 million then, right? Because I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we were gonna have to give some money to the general budget or the general fund.
Yes,
And
I
that's
had,
gonna bring us down to 13 million. Am I right?
He's,
No.
he's
What
talking,
was it?
we had,
You gotta help me here.
Talking about the fund balance.
fund
right, we
balance.
had approximately 1,600,000 budgeted out of fund balance
Yeah.
to balance the budget. So now we've reduced the expenditures, increased the revenue a little bit by 2,042,000. So we actually have a gain of about 5 million, or I'm sorry, 500,000. Wouldn't that be nice? 5 million, 500,000.
And I know I'm slow, so just bear with me. I remember you had a reserve. I call it reserve. from
Oh, I'm sorry,
business
the total fund balance, yes.
Yes, it's
Okay, yes,
15
it's
million.
15 million,
And
yeah.
you were gonna have to borrow some out of it
Correct.
to meet this budget, which would have brought it down to 13 million.
Correct,
That's what I was saying. Now you're back up.
yes.
You keep your 15 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Based on what happens with the insurance, we might need that 15 million plus another 10 million.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, and commissioners, I mean, I would just, depending upon how the conversations go on this insurance, I mean, again, I'm just going back to that legal fee line item with the amount of what we'd have to look at as far as paying in deductible, all of that money that we just cut probably needs to be appropriated to that line item if we choose to sign with that insurance group.
Plus.
And that's, I don't even know if that's a good enough number. I really don't. I mean, if we have zero claims moving forward, then we're great.
Yeah.
We never have to use it, and that's amazing. But if we have claims, depending upon what those claims are, what they are referring to, whether it's auto or law enforcement liability or even malpractice, employment practice, all that kind of stuff, it just depends, especially if it's the 1983 style. If it's 1983, then we're in trouble.
So we have 17 pending.
Yeah.
So now let's see. What calendar years are those out of? It's not 17 pending just from last fiscal
Some
year.
of those could be back to fiscal year 21, fiscal year 22.
Okay.
They're still ongoing cases. They just haven't either haven't been settled, or two, just pending, further information, or just back and forth between the insurance company and the attorney's office. Most of those, though, have occurred within the last 2 years.
Okay. So you could roughly say maybe 7 a year on average for the past 2-3 years, has been.
Which is high for
Right.
our size.
Yeah. So thinking of that number, is what I was trying to get to. Some of those deductibles were 250, some were 750. If you just said 500,000 on average, and you had 7 this next fiscal year, that would be $3.5 million that we would have to come up with. So just kind of putting that number out there into perspective as far as what we could be looking at in deductibles.
Which would be another 1.5 million on top of what we've already cut.
Yep.
So then you go back into your fund balance use. So we're almost the net, if you were to use that figure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we know we're gonna have to come back and do a budget amendment
Yeah.
after the insurance is done anyway.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned, I'm just kind of discussing this just because I feel like it's beneficial, but the potential of a hiring freeze, I'm just curious if that has been done in recent years, or.
It has been done in the county's history, yes.
Oh.
Yes, it has been done.
And what would it, basically, we would do a budget amendment and just any unfilled positions we would freeze or.
I would say that it would definitely hurt us on GIS and public safety if we were to do a hiring freeze, and just some of the other areas, even like in the court systems. So I would just really take a thorough look at how that would affect the county moving forward, just because, I mean, we're struggling right now just in public safety in general, across the board.
Yep.
And if you do a hiring freeze, all you're doing is just accruing more overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, your
Yep.
morale for those individuals are just, I mean, those that are being mandated to work extra, I think you really maybe want to consider
Yeah,
that.
no, I mean, that's a very good point. And,
Yeah.
you know, we've kind of, you know, I would say pride ourselves off of having zero debt besides, the different authorities that operate themselves self-sufficiently. And we realize that, you know, building a new jail we desperately need, and that's gonna, you know, we're probably gonna at least have to put half of that in the form of bonds, but this whole insurance thing could put us in debt. You know, if we didn't do a hiring freeze, it could put us in debt. So that might be an outcome of, you know, what happens here.
You're having such a hard time with retention and keeping employees now. Of course, this is a hiring freeze on any new employees you're referring to, I hope, not the
Sure.
vacancies that's there
Right.
now. But still, that's taking a big chance for us. It really is. Especially some of the positions we know that we critically need to get away from some of the contracts we were under, just like with the Coastal Region Commission doing our GIS and everything. That's a big chunk of money.
Well, hopefully we won't get there.
Yeah.
And this budget that we're hopefully gonna adopt tonight is based on not changing the millage rate,
Right.
which that's an option for us going forward as well.
Yep.
But there again, it all depends on what happens with the insurance.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Anybody got any more? Yes.
That being said, I'd make a motion to adopt the budget as amended.
Could I review the amendments just one more time?
Sure.
Okay. So revenue is going to increase 71,000. The gun range funding for 200,000. The sheriff's office vehicles, a reduction of 750,000. The side-by-side, 15,000. Courtroom benches, 54,000. The resiliency center, 750,000. Computer refresh, 26,000. The 3 deputies, 138,000. And the new secretary position for the sheriff's office, 38,000, for a net total of 2,042,000, including the revenue increase.
That's what I've got.
Oh, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Those opposed? We got us a budget.
Thank you, Commissioners. I would really just like to express all of our thoughts and appreciation for all of those of you who served on the Budget Committee, Nancy and her staff, who have worked tirelessly, just constantly putting together charts, graphs, PowerPoints, constant revisions back and forth, probably too many to ever count, and all of our staff, all of the funding agencies that we work with, just really appreciate you all understanding where we're at in the current budget, where we find ourselves currently, and where we're moving forward into the future. So we just appreciate all of you working with us. So thank you.
Nancy, very good job on this chart. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to consideration or approval of indigent defense contract for the public defender.
Okay, this agenda item is, it's a budgeted item now, and it's in the fiscal year 24 general fund budget with an increase of 47,570 for fiscal year 24. This reflects an increase in the personnel budget breakdown of $38,007 and the operating budget breakdown of $9,563. This is the standard contract with the Public Defender's Office. And this contract falls under the provisions of the Georgia Indigent Defense Act of 2003 to provide for legal representation to indigent defendants in criminal cases consistent with the standards adopted by the GPDSC. And the contract will reflect only Camden County's share of the pro rata share for personnel costs, including supplements and the office operations for the 5-county circuit.
I get a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second.
First and second to approve the contract. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just going back to the budgets real quick, just to kind of reaffirm that original motion on, I know it was mostly just for the general fund, but I just want to make sure we get clarity. That was for all funds because we have presented all funds. So just to clarify that motion. If you can, I don't know if, John, is that something they can do now? Just to clarify. I just want to make sure everybody understands that was all funds. Okay, all right, thank you. Just wanted to have that for the record. Thank you.
All right, this brings us to consideration of the change order for the 300-foot public safety radio tower.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bill Carrera here. I'm asking the Board of Commissioners to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $45,020 required to increase the tower structure foundation based on the final geotech information as related to achieving structural integrity of the 300-foot tower to be constructed at Gross Road. CDB funds were awarded to construct the Resiliency Operations Center and the new 300-foot tower. The FAA and the FCC approved was granted on April 26th and April 27th respectively, which allowed the final geotech to be approved. And then I just lost it.
Bill, is that one of them refurbished computers?
No, I just clicked and it just went away. Hold on.
Oh, we get the general idea behind what you're.
Yeah, so basically what had happened was is we received the FAA and the FCC approval, and that gave us the spot where the tower was going to be built. So the geotech people came in and they did a further soil sample of the sand and the water table and found out we needed to increase the base of the tower to support the 300-foot structure. What that means is we need more concrete, $45,000 more of concrete to make the tower so it won't fall. So I'm requesting the additional $45,000. That's already in the grant funds. We're not taking this out of the general fund. This is additional construction money that's already available by the CDBG grant. And we've already talked to our grant administrator, and DCA does not have a problem with us doing it.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Can we get a second? I'll second. All those in favor of
Discussion.
Robert? Yeah, we can discuss it.
I was just curious, so that money, you know, you mentioned is there allocated, there's no cap to that or the CPG? funds?
That's the phase 2. Remember, we only doing phase 1. So there was some extra construction money that was going to be allocated towards phase 2 that we're not doing.
Gotcha.
So that money is coming out of that construction money that's left over.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think to help answer your question is that the amount of money we're talking about receiving from Congressman Carter's office would fund everything we would need from phase 2 plus what?
Plus that additional money, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your clarification.
All right, we got a first and a second. All in favor?
All right, thank you.
Our radio tower. Mr. Collins?
Good evening, gentlemen. Tonight, I'm asking for the approval of the 2024 Humane Society contract. As you guys know, we did make some proposed modifications to the contract or requested those and could not come to an agreement. Be that as it may, I'm asking for the renewal of the contract as it currently stands, that we've had it since financial year 2019. So that includes $167,000 and $167,750.04, which you guys just approved. So that's roughly $14,000 a month, and the contract will be from July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. And it's so we don't have a lapse in services. I'd like to go ahead and get this approved. It's all right with y'all.
I got a motion on the side.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve it contingent upon next year we do a new contract, whether they like it or not.
Sounds good with me.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
The first and second, to accept the Humane Society contract. Any discussion? More discussion?
What didn't they like about a new contract?
They didn't like that?
They didn't like anything. So, the proposed modification, the main change was for, for the Board of Commissioners to appoint members of their board, just as we do with the rest of the nonprofit organizations that we fund.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit concerning. I mean, having a funding source and not having a voice,
Not having a voice. Yep.
not having a voice on the board to oversee those public funds being spent.
Definitely. And so that was our position, and unfortunately, they didn't agree. But like I said earlier, so we don't have any lapse, of services that for this year, it'll give us a year to work on that.
Okay. All right, we got a first and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed?
And Commissioners, just if I may, part of the reasoning and, continuing on with this, we've reached out to surrounding counties that have shelters, and they're all at capacity. Glenn actually just put out a notice over the weekend that they're even over capacity. So I think that's the big struggle, is that, everybody kind of finds themselves in this situation where they're at capacity. Even our shelter from time to time goes at capacity or even above capacity. So I think that's kind of part of one of the biggest issues.
Thank you.
Anybody that knows my son knows that he's an animal lover, and he's got Nassau and Glenn counties on there every day trying to pedal dogs off to somebody or cats.
All right, motion to approve the contract with Humane Society passed 4-1. All right, this brings us to reports. Changes, Katie?
Yes, sir. It's just.
Commissioners, the only thing I have for you all is the Citizens Academy is graduating this Thursday evening. So we'll be hosting them here at 6 p.m. that night. So just look forward. I hope each of you are able to attend and just answer, just do a quick Q&A with all of our participants. Some may not be able to be here. I think we had one come by the office today. They're going to be unable to be here, but really looking forward to just rounding that out, wrapping up any last standing questions that they may have. And it's been an amazing journey this year, just being in each of the sessions with them. They've had some really interactive sessions. One of those was a chicken session that we actually had a lot of fun with. It was probably the most engaging session we've ever had. Joey and his staff, they did an amazing job just highlighting that. And Chief Smith and his staff, I'm just kind of seeing some nodding heads out there of everything, everybody that's gone through, and really appreciate the Sheriff's Office also as for putting on their canine program. I think it's an amazing opportunity just to show our citizens what all of our departments do, and it was just a really good opportunity for those citizens this year. So looking forward to finishing that off.
Brings us to our final public comment section. Anybody registered?
I do not.
Anybody from the public wish to speak? All right. This time we need a motion to adjourn the special call meeting and convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We'll be back. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, there was no action we need to take from the executive session. So can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Start saying.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
All right, we're done.